Two churches. Same origin. Same theology. Same persecution history. Same Anabaptist roots stretching back to 1500s Europe. The Amish and the Mennonites were once indistinguishable brothers and sisters in a radical Reformation movement that rejected infant baptism, refused military service, and lived in intentional communities separate from the world. Then they diverged. Today, the Amish population in America is exploding. In 1920, they had 5,000 members. Today, over 400,000. They're doubling every 20 years through high birth rates and 90% retention of their youth. They're thriving. The Mennonites are collapsing. The Mennonite Church USA, the largest Mennonite denomination in America, has lost over 40% of its membership since the 1980s. From 130,000 members in 1987 to fewer than 60,000 today. Churches closing. Youth leaving. Average age climbing past 60. Within a generation, many predict the Mennonite Church USA will cease to exist as a viable denomination. Here's the paradox that nobody can explain. The Amish, who live without electricity, drive horse and buggy, and refuse modern technology, are growing exponentially. The Mennonites, who embraced modernity, pursued higher education, and engaged contemporary culture, are dying. The group that said no to the modern world is thriving. The group that said yes is disappearing. Today, we're investigating the Mennonite collapse and the Amish explosion. What the Amish are doing right that Mennonites are doing wrong. Why young people stay Amish but leave Mennonite. And what this paradox reveals about faith, community, and survival in the modern world. If you want to understand one of the most fascinating religious demographic stories in America, subscribe now. Because the Amish-Mennonite divergence challenges everything we think we know about what makes churches grow or die. And the answer might shock you. To understand the divergence, you need to know the shared history. Both Amish and Mennonites descend from the Anabaptist movement that began in Switzerland in 1525. The Anabaptists believed the state church had corrupted Christianity. They rejected infant baptism, insisting only adult believers should be baptized. They refused to swear oaths or serve in military. They lived in communities practicing mutual aid and discipline. These beliefs got them killed. Catholic and Protestant authorities hunted Anabaptists. Thousands were drowned, burned, or beheaded for their faith. Survivors fled to Moravia, Holland, and eventually to America seeking religious freedom. The Mennonites, named after leader Menno Simons, arrived in Pennsylvania in the 1680s. The Amish, named after Jacob Ammon, who split from Swiss Mennonites in 1693, came in the 1700s. The split between Amish and Mennonites was originally about strictness. Ammon wanted stricter discipline, more separation from the world, and shunning of excommunicated members. The Mennonites were slightly more lenient, but both groups shared core beliefs. Believers' baptism, pacifism, community, and separation from worldly conformity. Both spoke German. Both farmed. Both lived simply. Both faced persecution and discrimination in America for refusing military service. Through the 1800s and early 1900s, Amish and Mennonites remained relatively similar. Rural, farming, German-speaking, traditional. Then, in the mid-20th century, paths diverged dramatically. The Amish doubled down on separation, freezing their technology and culture at roughly 1850s levels. The Mennonites embraced acculturation, pursuing education, adopting English, and engaging modern American life. Most observers expected the Amish to die out. They were too backward, too restrictive. Young people would surely leave for modern conveniences. Most expected Mennonites to thrive. They were educated, relevant, engaged. But the opposite happened. Let me show you the data because it's stunning. The Amish population in 1900 was about 5,000. By 1950, it had grown to 15,000. By 1980, 60,000. By 2000, 166,000. By 2024, over 400,000. That's an 80-fold increase in a century. The Amish are now in 32 states and 4 Canadian provinces. Lancaster County, Pennsylvania alone has over 40,000 Amish. Holmes County, Ohio has over 45,000. They're establishing new settlements constantly as populations grow beyond what farmland can support. The growth is entirely organic. The Amish don't evangelize. They don't seek converts. They grow through having children and retaining them. Average Amish family has 6 to 7 children. And remarkably, about 90% of Amish youth choose to be baptized and remain Amish after Rumspringa, the period when they're allowed to experience the outside world. The Mennonite numbers tell the opposite story. The Mennonite Church USA had 130,000 members in 1987 when it formed through a denominational merger. By 2000, it had dropped to 115,000. By 2010, 100,000. By 2020, 62,000. By 2024, fewer than 60,000. That's a 54% decline in 37 years. The rate of decline is accelerating. In the 1990s, they lost about 1,000 members per year. In the 2000s, 2,000 per year. In the 2010s, over 3,000 per year. Churches are closing faster than new ones are planting. Entire conferences, the regional governing bodies, have dissolved. Goshen College, the flagship Mennonite institution, struggles with enrollment. The average age of remaining Mennonites is over 60. Youth retention is abysmal. Most Mennonite young people leave the church, either for other denominations or for no church at all. The Mennonite Church USA will likely have fewer than 40,000 members by 2030 and could be functionally extinct by 2050. The contrast is stark. The Amish will have over 500,000 members by then. One group is exploding. The other is imploding. Subscribe now if you're wondering why, because the reasons reveal profound truths about faith and community in the modern world. The first reason Amish thrive is that they maintain bounded communities with clear identity and high cost of membership. Being Amish means something specific. You dress plain, speak Pennsylvania Dutch, reject cars and electricity, farm or work in approved trades, submit to church discipline, and live separate from the world. These aren't suggestions. They're requirements. If you violate them seriously, you're shunned until you repent. This strictness seems like it would drive people away. Instead, it creates powerful belonging. Amish youth know exactly what Amish means. The boundaries are clear, the expectations are explicit, and the identity is strong. When Amish teenagers go through Rumspringa, they're choosing between two clearly defined options. Stay Amish with all its restrictions and all its community, or leave for the English world with all its freedom and all its isolation. 90% choose Amish community. Why? Because the Amish offer something modern culture can't: belonging, purpose, and identity that's deep and enduring. You're not just an individual pursuing happiness. You're part of something bigger, a community that will support you from birth to death. When you get sick, the community cares for you. When disaster strikes, they rebuild your barn. When you're old, your family lives nearby and cares for you. The cost of membership also makes membership valuable. Things that cost nothing are valued at nothing. Amish life costs tremendously. You give up cars, electricity, higher education, career options, and individual autonomy. But that sacrifice makes being Amish meaningful. You've paid the price, which proves it matters. Modern Mennonite churches ask almost nothing. You can be Mennonite and live exactly like secular neighbors. You can believe whatever you want theologically. You can dress however, work wherever, live however. The low cost makes membership worthless. If being Mennonite doesn't require anything, why bother being Mennonite at all? The second reason Amish thrive is cultural preservation. They've maintained a distinct language, Pennsylvania Dutch, which creates immediate in-group/out-group distinction. They've preserved traditional skills like farming, carpentry, and quilting that give them economic viability outside mainstream economy. They've kept extended family structures where 3 generations live near each other. They've retained strong gender roles and family structures that, while controversial to modern sensibilities, provide clear expectations and social stability. This cultural preservation creates a complete alternative to modern American life. Being Amish isn't just about religious beliefs. It's a total way of life. The Mennonites abandoned cultural preservation in pursuit of assimilation. They stopped speaking German in the early 1900s. They adopted modern dress, modern technology, and modern careers. They moved from rural areas to cities and suburbs. They sent children to public schools and universities where Mennonite identity dissolved in broader American culture. They became culturally indistinguishable from other Americans. Within 2 generations, being Mennonite meant attending a Mennonite church on Sunday while living exactly like neighbors the rest of the week. Once that happened, the question became inevitable. If being Mennonite is just about Sunday morning, why not just attend a more convenient church? Or sleep in? The cultural assimilation that Mennonites pursued as strategy to remain relevant destroyed the very distinctiveness that made them valuable. The Amish cultural preservation that seemed backward and unsustainable has proven to be precisely what enables long-term survival. You can't maintain religious community without cultural infrastructure to support it. The Amish kept the infrastructure. The Mennonites abandoned it. And now they're paying the price. The third reason Amish thrive is resistance to individualism. Modern American culture is hyper-individualistic. You do what's right for you. You pursue your happiness. You make your own choices. You define your own identity. This individualism destroys community because community requires subordinating individual preferences for collective good. The Amish explicitly reject individualism. The community decides how you'll live. Gelassenheit, yielding to God and community, is the core Amish value. You don't choose your career based on passion. You choose based on what the community needs and allows. You don't choose where to live based on job opportunities. You live near family and church. This anti-individualism seems oppressive to modern people, but it creates stability, belonging, and purpose that individualism can't provide. Amish people know who they are, where they belong, and what their life's purpose is. They're part of a community that needs them and will care for them. Modern Mennonites embraced individualism fully. You choose your own theology, your own politics, your own lifestyle. The community makes few demands and offers little support. This creates freedom but also isolation. Mennonite churches became collections of individuals who happened to attend the same building, not communities bound by common life. The result is that Mennonite churches can't compete with secular alternatives. If church is just one option among many for spending Sunday morning, and it doesn't actually create deep community or shared life, why choose church? You can sleep in, go to brunch, or pursue hobbies that actually connect you with people who share your interests. The Amish offer something categorically different from secular life. Mennonites offer a mildly religious version of the same individualism available everywhere else. People choose the Amish option. They don't choose the Mennonite one. The fourth reason Amish thrive is theological clarity and stability. Amish theology hasn't changed in 300 years. They believe the same things their ancestors believed. The Bible is God's word. Jesus is the only way to salvation. Believers' baptism is necessary. Pacifism is non-negotiable. Community discipline is required. These beliefs create stability and clarity. Amish youth know exactly what they're supposed to believe. The theology doesn't change based on cultural trends or new scholarship. It's fixed, stable, and transmitted faithfully from generation to generation. The Mennonite Church USA abandoned theological stability for progressive theology. They questioned biblical authority, embraced higher criticism, and redefined Christianity around social justice rather than traditional doctrine. In 2017, the Mennonite Church USA resolved to become a welcoming and inclusive church for LGBTQ people, performing same-sex marriages and ordaining non-celibate LGBT clergy. This was framed as progressive evolution, but it drove away traditional Mennonites without attracting progressive ones. The denomination fractured. Conservative churches left for more traditional Mennonite groups or became independent. Progressive members left because they didn't need a Mennonite church for progressive theology. They could get that from Episcopal or UCC churches with better music and nicer buildings. The theological liberalism also destroyed the Mennonite Church USA's ability to answer the basic question, why be Christian? If the Bible isn't reliably God's word, if Jesus isn't the only way to salvation, if traditional moral teachings are culturally conditioned and changeable, Why bother with Christianity at all? Mennonite leaders had no compelling answer. They'd traded theological conviction for cultural relevance and found that relevance without conviction attracts no one. The Amish kept their theology. It's old, it's strict, it's demanding, but it's clear, it's stable, and it provides meaning. People stay for that. They don't stay for progressive relativism. The Mennonite collapse can be traced to specific decisions that seemed right at the time but proved catastrophic. The first was the pursuit of higher education. In the early 1900s, Mennonite leaders believed education was necessary for their people to thrive in America. They built colleges: Goshen, Bethel, Bluffton, Eastern Mennonite. They encouraged young people to pursue university degrees. They celebrated academic achievement. Education became a core Mennonite value. This seemed wise. Education brings opportunity, prosperity, and influence. But it had unintended consequences. Educated Mennonites moved away from rural communities for careers. They absorbed secular worldviews in universities. They questioned traditional beliefs. They married non-Mennonites they met at university. The education pipeline became an exodus pipeline. Young people left for college and never came back to Mennonite churches. They'd been educated out of their faith tradition. Studies show that higher education correlates with religious decline, not because education itself destroys faith, but because universities socialize students into secular progressive culture that's incompatible with traditional Christianity. Mennonites fed their children into this system and were shocked when the children emerged no longer Mennonite. The Amish saw this trap and avoided it. They end formal education at 8th grade. Amish children learn reading, writing, and arithmetic, then work in family businesses or farms. They're never exposed to the secularizing influence of universities. They remain embedded in Amish community and culture. This seems backward and limiting, and it is. Amish people have fewer career options and less exposure to broader world. But they retain their faith and community. Mennonites gained education and career success but lost their children. The trade-off reveals a harsh truth. You can have academic credentials or religious community, but in modern America, having both is extremely difficult. The Mennonites chose education, and it destroyed them. The second fatal decision was cultural assimilation. Mennonites believed that maintaining German language and traditional dress made them inaccessible and irrelevant. They wanted to be witnesses in American society, which required speaking English and dressing like Americans. So they assimilated. They dropped Pennsylvania Dutch. They adopted contemporary clothes. They bought cars and televisions. They moved to suburbs. They became Americans who happened to attend Mennonite churches. This assimilation was intentional and celebrated. Mennonites saw themselves as engaging culture rather than fleeing from it. But assimilation destroyed the cultural foundation that supported their religious identity. Within 2 generations, there was nothing distinctively Mennonite about Mennonites except theology and Sunday morning attendance. And theology was changing too, becoming more liberal and less distinctive. Once you remove cultural distinctiveness, religious identity becomes abstract and unsustainable. Why drive across town to attend a Mennonite church that's theologically and culturally identical to the non-denominational church 2 blocks away? There's no reason. So people stopped attending. The assimilation that was supposed to make Mennonites relevant made them redundant. The Amish rejected assimilation entirely. They maintained boundaries between themselves and the world. Horse and buggy instead of cars. Plain dress instead of fashion. Pennsylvania Dutch instead of English. Farming instead of professional careers. These boundaries seemed like barriers to witness and relevance. But they created clear identity and strong community. Amish people can't drift into mainstream culture because the boundaries prevent it. Mennonites built no boundaries and their people drifted away. The assimilation trap reveals that religious communities need separation to survive. Not total isolation, but enough distinctiveness that you can't accidentally stop being part of the community. The third factor in Mennonite collapse is demographics, specifically declining birth rates. The average Amish family has 6 to 7 children. The average Mennonite family has 1 to 2. This difference alone explains most of the divergence in growth. Religious communities that don't reproduce die. It's mathematical. If you need a fertility rate of about 2.1 children per woman just to maintain population, and Mennonites are at 1.5, the population shrinks every generation. Compound that over 70 years and you get catastrophic collapse. Why do Mennonites have so few children? Because they embraced modern American values around family size, women's careers, and delayed marriage. Mennonite women pursued higher education and careers, which delayed marriage and reduced fertility. Mennonite couples adopted secular family planning, focusing on career and financial stability before children. Mennonite culture celebrated small families as responsible and large families as backwards. These values mirror secular American culture perfectly, and they produce the same demographic death spiral secular Western culture is experiencing. The Amish have large families because their theology, culture, and economic structure support it. Children are blessings, not burdens. Women's primary calling is motherhood, not career. Extended family provides childcare support. Farm and workshop economies can absorb children's labor. Having many children makes economic and social sense in Amish context. Mennonites adopted a culture where children are expensive obstacles to career success and personal fulfillment. You can't sustain religious communities with that mindset. The Amish demographic explosion and Mennonite demographic collapse stem directly from different approaches to family, marriage, and children. Two churches, same roots, same history, same theological foundation. The Amish said no to the modern world. They kept their language, their culture, their distinctive way of life. They resisted individualism, maintained theological clarity, and had many children. Today they're 400,000 strong and doubling every generation. The Mennonites said yes to the modern world. They pursued education, assimilated into American culture, embraced progressive theology, and adopted secular family planning. Today they're 60,000 and shrinking toward extinction. The paradox reveals an uncomfortable truth. The path to survival in the modern world might be resistance to the modern world. The strategies that seemed most likely to ensure relevance, education, assimilation, theological liberalization, actually guaranteed irrelevance. The strategies that seemed most likely to ensure extinction, separation, traditionalism, theological conservatism, actually guaranteed survival. This should force us to question our assumptions about what makes churches grow or die. We assumed that to reach modern people you must become modern. The Amish prove that's wrong. We assumed that maintaining boundaries meant isolation and decline. The Mennonites prove that abandoning boundaries means dissolution and death. We assumed education and progress were always good. The Mennonite collapse suggests they're often fatal to religious community. Here's the challenge for every church. Can you maintain distinctive identity in a culture that demands conformity? Can you ask costly commitment in an age of consumerism? Can you preserve theological clarity when culture demands relativism? Can you build multigenerational community when culture prioritizes individual freedom? The Amish have answered yes to all these questions, and they're thriving. The Mennonites answered no, and they're dying. The lesson is clear even if it's uncomfortable. Faithfulness to tradition, resistance to assimilation, and willingness to be countercultural aren't obstacles to survival. They're requirements for it. If this investigation challenged your assumptions, opened your eyes, or made you rethink what makes churches grow, subscribe now. The Amish-Mennonite divergence is one of the most important religious stories in America, and its lessons apply far beyond these two communities.